Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see here. All right. What is going on, everybody? What's up, Livestream chat? What's up, Discord? This should be fun. Hey, Nicholas, Psyker Brigade, Vacano, Sacha, Jalen, Space Junk. Good to see you again, guys. Mario, Jalen, El Guapo. Was I on vacation? I was not. I was doing a lot of things. I was doing a lot of work, actually. What's going on, guys, in the Discord right now? If you guys, by the way, YouTube chat, if you're not in the Discord, and that doesn't look correct at all, of course it doesn't. We're gonna have probably some different technical difficulties. Oh, I bet it's because of this. If I do this, there it is. That works. Yeah, if you guys are not in the Discord, definitely check the Discord out. I'm going to be taking questions from the Discord today instead of the live stream chat so that people can actually hop in and ask me questions directly. I can hear your guys' voices and that kind of thing. So, yeah. And we'll see how this goes. This is going to be the first time me doing this. There might be some technical difficulties. I'm running like a few different new things here, everybody. So, yeah, just keep that in mind and bear with me. And if you want to join the Discord, everybody on YouTube, there should be a link below this stream. There's a little join link. You can get it immediately. And then you can hop in, speak to me directly, and ask me some questions. Nice to see you too again, Nicholas. What's up? Jalen, I miss you so much, bro. Yeah, Jalen. So, yeah, I've been working on a lot of different things. I'm no longer doing the whole top development thing. Back to practical screenwriting, practicalscreenwriting.com. That's what I'm doing now, which is what I was always really doing, and that's what I'll be doing going forward. So, working on a lot of really cool YouTube videos for you guys. Those will also be coming as quickly as I can make them. And I'm not really going to be doing a lot of those like stream clips type stuff. I'm going to be mainly doing well-made kind of video essay stuff like has been the bread and butter of this channel. So, yeah. Also, if you're in the YouTube chat, you can see Josh just put in a link to join the Discord. And I wrote a bunch of crappy scripts because you weren't here to tell me what I was doing wrong. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, we're gonna test this out. We're gonna see how this all plays, and yeah, we will go from there. So all right. So guys in the Discord, what's going on, guys? If you want to raise your hand, I'm gonna bring you guys up into the speakers, and if you have questions, raise your hand. And, request to speak, and I can bring you up. You can ask me your question. Let's see. Yes. 12-ounce tube of sausage. All right, here we go. Let's try this out.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. What's going on?
Excellent, bro. Hey, I'm just curious, man. I've been watching your content for like years now, like trying to apply a lot of those lessons to my own writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how I got into being interested into storytelling, but I'm kind of curious, man, like what got you into storytelling? Because I've seen a lot of content out there, like to teach you how to tell stories. I've read books and all this stuff, and there's a lot of advice out there, and it doesn't, like, your content, like, really cuts. I mean, I'm not trying to, I'm not here to, anyway, like, how did you get into, it's like kind of a two-question. How did you get into storytelling, and how is it that you're able to sort of, like, get to like the essence of problems? Like when you see a problem, you know where it is. How'd you get there? That's my question, my long-winded question.
Sure. Yeah, so I got into stories like when I was young. So, okay, back in when I was a kid, like elementary school, coming into middle school, like that time, right? Really young. My parents were pretty strict on like what I could, like video games I could play, TV shows and stuff that I could watch, this kind of thing. And so because of that, I spent a lot of my time reading books because they wouldn't let me like watch a ton of movies or play a ton of video games, right? So like I had a lot of friends that were um, playing Call of Duty for like 6 hours a day or, doing different things. And my parents just were not letting me do that. And so because of that, I was just reading a lot of books because I had nothing else to do. And that was the beginning of what ended up being this long journey of me falling in love with storytelling, of like all types, right? So I think what's kind of interesting about how I got to here was I didn't come into screenwriting from a screenwriting place or like from a love of movies, although I did like movies. Like, I've loved Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and some of those stuff I was watching those as a kid. But really, I was started with books. And then as I got older, when I had to like pick a career as I was hopping into college, it was like, okay, I can, like, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was looking at like computer science because I had like, put together a PC and I was kind of, the IT guy in a few different areas of life. But then I didn't like math and doing computer stuff really. And so then I was like, okay, well, I've always loved books, but I don't want to write books because I didn't feel like people read, right? Like, and so I was like, okay, well, what is the most culturally relevant way to tell stories? That was movies and TV. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. And so that got me shifting into the whole screenwriting side of storytelling. But I didn't really start there. But from there, at that point, like your second question, how did I get to this point of really being analytical about writing and storytelling? What happened with that was in college, I was writing screenplays and I was making shorts. And I was doing that. I wrote like 3 or 4 screenplays and I made a couple of shorts. And then I made this one 20-page short script, right? And I had a co-writer. We co-wrote this together. And then it was like this one location thriller with like this ensemble cast of like 6 characters. And I was like, okay, we're going to make this. It was super ambitious for a kid in college with no money. But I was like, okay, I'm going to make this. We had this location that was one state over, this like lake house. And I was like, okay, we're going to go over one state. We're going to, for this like weekend, we're going to shoot this whole 20-page short script in 2 days and, make this movie, right? So I took the 6 cast and like 5 crew and myself, and we loaded up all this gear into cars, drove everybody like 4 or 5 hours over, stayed over, got to this lake house, shot this short, right? And it was super difficult. Like even to this day, it was one of the most intense things that I've ever done. And it kind of made me despise like the shooting process a bit because we were so rushed and there was so much going on and we just had like so many pages to get through. And we shot, I think it was like from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. the first night, and then something similar the second night. It was like these all night shoots because it was like this kind of the whole short was about this night that happens. And so we get through the shooting. I come back. I'm like, spent all this money, worked with all these people, worked with these actors, wrote the script, did all this stuff. Got back, finally put it all into Premiere, and was trying to edit this thing, and I just hated it. Like, I'm sure if I would have kept pushing, it would have gotten better, but I was in this state of despair trying to do this first assembly cut of this short script, and I was like, I am not going to do this ever again until I understand how to actually write a good script. Because the problem was the script. The actors had done their job. The actors had done their job. The crew had done their job. We had a good location, right? Like everything was there except for the writing, right? And so I was frustrated at that because I'd put all this work in. And so after that was kind of a big point where I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And that was when I really shifted and started doing these deep dives into story, trying to get them to work. And that was kind of part one. Another big smack in the face was when I moved out to LA for the first time. Because in 2018, I came out to LA and I was working for a production company as a script reader. And this particular company let you submit a screenplay if you were working there, right? And so I wrote this script. Again, another kind of like contained thriller story. Wrote the script. Thought it was pretty decent. Submitted it to them. And then I had a meeting with one of the producers there, and he told me that it was Z grade. He was like, this is no good, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, not that nice about it, and he didn't need to be. But it was another smack in the face. What's up, Zach? Good to see you. Another smack in the face, and I was like, again, it was like, I don't actually get this. I don't understand what I'm actually doing here. And, you know, I think a lot of people are okay with like getting lucky or like trying to like feel inspired and then getting a script to work. But I wanted to actually wrap my mind around this thing that was 100-page story in script format and know why every single page of that script was supposed to be there. And so because of that, I think like taking these L's essentially over and over again was extremely beneficial for me, and which is kind of what I've done this year again, is take some L's. And I think that really forced me to be honest with the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. And because of that, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And so I used that as fuel to figure it out, essentially.
Man, I love the two multi-part answer. So you really just kind of jumped into it to see like what would happen, and then you realized along the way. That's cool, man. I could ask you a million questions. I don't want to hog this. I see someone else raised their hand. I will definitely be asking you some more, but thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah.
All right, let's see who else is in here. Okay. What is this? XI545. What's going on, man? He's starting his camera, or she. Not quite sure. One second, guys. Okay, sweet. Oh, you're muted. Here we go. Here, let me see if I can get you unmuted. Oh no, should be at the bottom of your screen. Hit that mute button right at the bottom.
Okay, I think I got it.
You got it. What's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to say hi, and that I love all of your videos. They've been really practical. I've been struggling with writing for a while, and the video you did a while back on like story structure and Dan Harmon's story circle, that really helped me a lot.
Fantastic. Which one is it? Which one are you talking about?
I've watched, I think you had two specifically that dealt with that. I think it's the one that talks about the Avengers.
Okay, yeah.
I have like a dumb specific question about it, though.
Sure. Go for it.
Okay, so you've got your initial problem, and then down a little bit further, you've got your pivotal problem.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a pivotal problem like worse or harder than the first one?
Great question. Okay. So think about it like this. And actually, I am going to do this. And also, let's see if this works. I'm testing a lot today. So, yes, that works. Okay, cool. All right. So, where is my whiteboard here? So, this will be on the live stream on YouTube. I don't know if I can show this inside the Discord as well. We're going to figure all this out. But let's see here. So essentially, how you can think about this, a great way to think about this is, and I'm on my draw pad on the live stream on YouTube if you can't see this. Because I don't know if I can show this in Discord at the same time. But essentially, you've got your 3, which is your initial problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then another way that you can think about the 6 that I think might actually be more helpful is that the 6 is a surprise problem, right? So the idea here, and I'm going to use the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, the first act of the first movie to kind of walk through this, right? So in the first act of the first movie of Lord of the Rings, we've got Frodo, and Frodo has he's not a super active character in the beginning, but he wants to go on an adventure. That's really his want, but he hasn't really solidified that as like what he wants to go on. So the initial problem, the inciting incident of The Lord of the Rings is that he finds the ring, right? Or like the ring is given to him, right? Now, there's also another piece to this that's super important, is that the ring wraiths in the story are now actively looking for it. And if you remember, have you seen the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was a while back.
Sure. So in the movie, when Gandalf realizes, okay, this is the ring of power, we need to destroy this ring. In that scene, he also knows that Sauron, our big bad guy, grabbed Gollum, and that Gollum essentially said where the ring is, right? It's in the Shire. That's what he was told. So what we get in this initial problem is we get the setup of these new characters, which are the ring wraiths, right? The guys in black looking for Frodo. However, if you notice, they are not a present problem yet, right? This allows Frodo and Gandalf to essentially have this debate to decide what are they going to do, right? And so the ring wraiths are not yet on top of them, but it's like, okay, there's a problem happening out there. They're coming. But we have some time to talk about it, right? We're still in this kind of setup side of the act, right? We've got some time to figure out what is it we're going to do. So then we decide, okay, we're going to take this ring to this inn at the edge of the Shire, and Gandalf is going to meet back up with Frodo. That's the plan they decide. So they decide, okay, we're going to do this plan. Frodo is going to meet up with Gandalf at the inn, and that's what we're going to do. Okay. So then from that 4 forward, we're trying to get to this inn, right? And so we have a couple close calls with the wraiths, but like we don't have a full-on confrontation yet. Then at the 5, we get to the inn, and then we have this problem happen, right? So he gets to the inn, the inn at the Prancing Pony is what it's called. And then the problem is, the first part of the problem is that Gandalf is not there, right? Now that's the surprise, right? That's the first part of the surprise, is that Gandalf is supposed to be there according to the plan that we set up. He's not there. But then we have the payoff of what was set up in the 3, right? So in the 3, we have this idea like, hey, out there in the distance, there are these guys cloaked in black coming for us that they want to grab the ring. And then we have the payoff of them. The wraiths actually show up at the end.
Okay.
Right? So we kind of have these two key problems that are happening at the same time here. One, we get the surprise of Gandalf is not where he said he was going to be because he gets grabbed by Saruman, right? The evil wizard. And then we have this other problem. The wraiths are now on top of us, right? They are now a present threat. And the initial problem, they weren't a present threat. Now they are actually on top of us. And so then this forces the climactic choice of the act, right? So the 7 is this climactic choice. So really, this whole, for the first 1 through 5 of the story, we set up who Frodo is, that he wants to go on this adventure, that we have this problem out in the distance. Gandalf and him make this plan to handle this initial problem. He gets to the end, but then we have our problem. Gandalf is not there. The wraiths are right here. And we have this choice, essentially, which is this new character, Aragorn, has come in. They don't really know if they can trust this person, but he's the only one he's their only option. So they make the climactic choice to trust this character they don't know because Gandalf is not there. They trust him. He is able to handle the wraiths initially at the inn. And now we go into the change, which is now Frodo is on the road with this new character, Aragorn.
Okay, that's helpful. And I think you touched on it already, but like, I know in that recent video you put out about choice and like the one with the thumbnail with like the red pill or the blue pill. Mm-hmm. So all of the choice happens at the change, right?
So the choices had good question. The choice is happening at, so here's what I would say. One, a choice can happen in all of the scenes. Like essentially every scene can have some sort of smaller choice, but this point right here and this point right here are going to be your big moments of choice, right? So let me explain how. So initially, we have this character. He's in his normal world. He wants to go on this adventure, right? Then he gets this problem, right? Now this ring of power is in his grasp, and these bad guys are looking for him. So now this opens up a choice, right? What is he going to do? Is he going to decide to go on this adventure, or is he going to make another choice, like try to stay or try to give it away, try to give it to someone else, this kind of thing? So Frodo chooses the adventure, but on a small scale here, right? Like at this point, Frodo is not choosing to run the ring all the way to Mordor. He's not even choosing to take it halfway. All he's choosing right here is he's choosing to take it to this 5, to take it to the inn, right? To take it to the edge of the Shire, right? Because this 5, this goal here, this is as far as he can see. He can't see that the wraiths are going to surprise him. He can't see that the ring can't stay in the Shire or it can't stay in Rivendell and you got to take it all the way to Mordor. He can't see any of that, right? All he can see is that we got to get to this end, okay? So he chooses the adventure at this 4. And this is his first choice, and this is the key choice of the setup. Then, when he gets to the end and Gandalf is not there, now things are no longer going to plan, and a new problem arises. Now he must make a new choice. Essentially, the new choice is trust Aragorn or not, right? Do I trust this new guy? Am I going to follow him forward? Or am I going to choose to wait for Gandalf at the end, which was the plan? So again, he chooses the adventure, and he chooses to go with Aragorn, to keep going forward. And this is what happens in the scene, right? So when I was talking about in that choices video where like a scene is characters debating a choice. So what happens is Aragorn is saying, listen, you can't stay at this end, right? Aragorn is saying we need to leave, right? So it's essentially like the choice is very basically leave versus don't leave, right? Very, very simple. So Aragorn is on the leave side, right? Hey, we need to leave. It is not safe here. The wraiths are coming for you. And Frodo is on the side of, well, the plan was to wait for Gandalf. I'm supposed to stick to the plan, and I don't know who you are, right? And so they have this debate back and forth, and eventually Frodo chooses to change side with Aragorn and say, okay, fine, I'm going to go with you, and now we go forward. Now Frodo's with Aragorn. He makes the right choice. It pays off. And so then he's with him, and then we go to the next act from there, right? And now we're back at a new character status quo.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
Perfect. Awesome. Good stuff. Let me check in with YouTube chat here real fast. Let's see. How are you guys doing? Oh my God, depending on what you're writing, do you like to listen to music while doing so? CJ, I never like to listen to music while I write. I feel like it's distracting. El Guapo, not even the greats come out the gate with masterpieces. Everyone takes L's. Yes, absolutely. Everyone writes bad screenplays. It is part of it. If you do not allow yourself to write bad screenplays, you will never write a good one. So let yourself write bad screenplays and go from there. I see I've got another request. Stevenson Johnson. What's going on, Stevenson? Do you have a camera today? What's going on, man?
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can.
I can't hear you, bro.
Oh, weird. I'm not quite sure why. Last person could.
So I can't hear it. I can't hear you, Tyler.
Well,
I'm not sure you can hear me.
I can hear you. I can hear you, bud. Well, I'm gonna have to move you to the audience. Yeah, you could try rejoining. All right. Yeah, Stevenson, if you want to try rejoining, you can go ahead and do that. But I am not quite sure. If anyone else has a question in the Discord, raise your hand and I'll bring you up. Oh, here we go again. Let's see if we got it this time.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, bro.
Perfect.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Awesome. What's going on, man? Are you able to turn your camera on today?
Actually, no, man. My camera's broke.
Okay. No worries. What's going on? What's your question?
Well, first off, man, it's good to see you back live streaming, man. We missed you, bro.
I'm glad to be back.
Hope you could do this at least once a month.
My plan is to do this once every Thursday. That is what I'm shooting for.
Because excellent. Okay, I have two questions.
Sure.
One of which I've actually asked you a couple of months ago on live stream, but
okay.
First question is, are you able to make another deep dive video regarding how to make a short film?
Yeah. Do you have a particular question on a short right now that you want to know?
Yeah, because I have two options that you could choose from. Both of them are about 3 to 4 minutes long. The first one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, The Three Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is, let me see. I want to make sure I got the name right. Okay. The second one is Overwatch, animated short, Dragons.
Okay. Is there a short that you're working on?
The thing about me is I take like all the information, like I apply it to like making like animated like stories,
Okay.
like books, storybooks, right? And right now I'm working on that, but I don't have nothing put together yet because I'm working on another gig. But yeah, that was my first question.
For sure.
Second question is when a character has a want, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's set up in like step two in the story circle.
Yes.
If a character wants to, if their want changes, what step of the story circle does that take place? Because, for example, in the movie Up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Carl and his wife,
Mm-hmm.
and their first want is to have a baby. And then they found out that his wife can't have kids. And then their want changes to wanting to go to Paradise Falls.
Mm-hmm.
So, what step in the story circle would a character's want take place?
So specifically with the Up example that you're talking about, a lot of that, so that whole Up montage is
Mhm.
essentially backstory and setup before the real events of the story kick off. So I would say that all of that is essentially the one in the story, right? Where we are getting a sense of who Carl is, what his
Mhm.
backstory is, and the reason why he ends up going on this Paradise Falls adventure in the first place. So, what I would say is big picture,
Mhm.
Carl's want is to go to Paradise Falls to fulfill the dream that he had with his wife that we see in that Up montage.
Gotcha. And because that montage, like just that montage by itself, can be a animated short film,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Because it's like 10 minutes long. So it's just up sequence. Let's just say that was the film itself.
Mm-hmm.
What step of the story circle would the want change
So here's
take
what
place?
good question. So I would say the short answer is at the 6 going forward. So in that short, which also I don't think it's 10 minutes, I think it's more like 4 or 5, which I know sounds like I'm being nitpicky, but I think it is important to note because it is a very quick
Gotcha.
backstory kind of setup thing that's happening. But essentially in that Up montage, they want a baby first. They're doing things to have a baby. And then the big problem, right? The big 6, the big surprise problem is that they can't have one, right? So essentially,
Mhm.
that first want is taken away from them. When that want
Gotcha.
is taken away from them, now they have a decision to make about what they're going to do next. And so that allows the character to decide what to do next.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it, man. Thank you so much, man, for having me.
For sure. I'm glad you're in the Discord, man. Good to see you around.
Yep. Glad to see you back, man.
Thanks, man. I should be. My plan is to do these each Thursday. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, that is the plan.
All right, and hope you can make those that deep dive in anime and how to make a short film. Like I know you're very busy, so obviously when you have time to do it.
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say on that. I think so. The story circle. So I'm right now. I'm doing a video on just to kind of give you a sneak peek for what's coming later. I'm doing a video on how to make a climax, and that is the big
Ah,
video I'm working on next. Now, what I would say is a story circle is a fractal tool. Now, what I mean by that is that a story circle works at multiple levels of your story, right? So whether you are working on a big feature screenplay and you're taking 100 pages and you're putting that 100 pages into one big circle, you can do that, right? You can make one big circle for an entire screenplay. You can also make a circle for what I recommend in a lot of my story structure videos on each of your acts, right? And I believe there are 4 acts in a great screenplay: Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. And each of those acts can be its own story circle. And then what you're talking about is taking like a short, so maybe something that would only have a few scenes, or maybe would be a sequence, or 10 pages or less, or something that I look at. Have you seen the Rick and Morty, the video I did on the Rick and Morty analyzing a short?
Oh, yes, I have. I watched that a lot. I studied that.
Perfect. So what I'm saying is, if you study a story circle at a big level, like a feature with 100 pages, or you study it at like looking at an hour pilot that's like 60 pages with one big story circle, I've made some videos about that. Or if you look at it by like each act is 30 pages, roughly, and now you're looking at it that way, or you're looking at it like a sitcom episode, like a Rick and Morty episode, where you have an A plot, and that A plot in that Rick and Morty episode that I analyze in that short film video is like 14 pages, right? Which is essentially a short script length, which is why I analyzed it in the sense of a short, because the tool of a story circle can be used at multiple different stages. And that's why I have gravitated to it so much, because I'm not looking for a structural tool that just only works for screenplays, or only works for shorts, or only works for a TV pilot, or only works for a novel. What I want to know is, what is the fundamental organic nature in which a story must unfold so that a character can go through an arc and we can see some of these beats unfold. And so I will definitely in the future be making more videos and doing more content about short scripts. Definitely will. But what I would also say is, don't discount looking at longer form stories through the lens of a story circle, because that can still be helpful for you.
Oh, I know. Most definitely. I studied Dark Knight story circle a lot as well. That's
Sweet.
like my favorite movie. But thank you, man. I really appreciate it, man. You have a good day.
You too. All right. Let's see. Jalen John. Hi, Jalen. How are you?
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. It's very nice to meet you. Can you see me?
I can. What's going on, man?
Hi. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of your YouTube channel, and I'm kind of nervous, but I'll just get to the question.
Sure.
So I'm in a creative writing class, and I think like your YouTube channel like really sparked like this interest in writing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know, like, basically what your, like, to you personally, what your process of, like, starting a story is, like, whether that is developing, like, your character's wants and desires, and then also storyboarding it, like, based on, like, the Dan Harmon story circle. But what is, like, the process of, like, working through a story and also starting a story for you?
Sure. So here's what I'll say. It is... So it's a little bit messy. Here's what I would say, right? When I'm coming into a story, I don't necessarily have, like, it's not like this perfectly, okay, I kind of fill my nice analytical buckets and like everything sort of makes sense. So for example, the feature I'm working on right now, I had this idea for a feature. I had the sense of the big idea, philosophical conflict, and a bit of the sense of the characters first. And so with that, I went and I used my story framework. I have essentially a full story framework inside the practical screenwriting course, and I use that. Like, that is my framework. That's how I use it. And so that kind of goes through your philosophical conflict, your characters, your concept, your character web, your structure, your scenes, this kind of flow. So I had this idea. I had a general sense of the concept, had a pretty good sense of the philosophical conflict, some of the characters. I blasted a draft out in pretty quickly, about 3 months. I had the idea, blasted a draft out. The draft was, and this was last year, 2022. The draft was awful, not good, really ended up not being what I wanted. I really liked the soul of the idea that I had, but like the execution of it was just like really not there yet. And I was frustrated about that, but I was like, okay. So then I went back to my outline, went back to the drawing board, and started making huge changes again to it. And so I kind of piecemeal it. So I would have days where I was working on the concept and I worked a lot on bettering the concept, and then I had some ideas for the characters, and then I bounced around, I had an idea for this midpoint, so I threw that down, and then I kind of came back and I readjusted my philosophical conflict, and then that changed some things. So I think for me, what I have done, my process is I have my structural outline, my story framework, right? My kind of practical framework. But the way that ideas come and the way that I move that story forward, that's going to happen in different ways. And I use my framework as like my spine to keep everything generally on the same track, right? So, with that, what I found is like a couple of things I found is one, you cannot not have just the basic hours in, right? Like even though I've worked on a lot of people's scripts, I've read a ton of scripts, I've written a lot of scripts, I still have to put hours in to find the good ideas, to implement those good ideas, to figure out what's not working, to sometimes write a draft that I totally, discard and come back to. Like, I'm not at this point where I'm like writing a draft and, it's this perfect draft the first time. Like it's just not the nature of how art works, right? But what I just try to do is I try to keep my story on the train tracks of where I want it to go using, the skill set I've learned in regards to putting things in the right order and understanding what is going to affect what. But the biggest thing too is I hopped into that draft way too fast. And I, like looking back at it, I'm glad I wrote it because it pushed me forward and it got me some good ideas out. But right now I'm really deep on the outline because I feel like having a strong outline, and especially like with a strong framework and understanding that outline, knowing how to mess with it and use it saves you so much time when you get into the draft. And that's not to say if you're like, I would say if you're less than 3 or 4 screenplays in, like pound a draft, like just get, like you are still building the skill set of actually putting words down and actually like hitting 100 pages, right? But if you are 4 or 5 in, then I would say slow down. And you need a strong outline. You need that framework of story. You can, you can use my videos online. You can use stuff on practical screenwriting, but that's what I would say.
Perfect. I think that was like so well. Like you have a way with words, and I guess like just a comment and a kind of question, really quick, so other people can talk. There
We're in
was
no
something
hurry.
that you said like, okay,
We're
cool.
in no hurry.
The concept part of writing, like I feel like for me, I guess it's a strong suit, but it's also like I don't know whether it's like different or not. And I think I remember like you saying one of your videos to not like try to be different, but to like I can't really remember like exactly what you said, but I guess like my question is, in regards to like conceptualization, like for like writing and story writing, what makes a story strong in that aspect? I know like I watched your video about I think the movie with Jim Carrey. I don't know what it was called.
Your Truman Show.
But yes, that really like helped me a lot. So I was just wondering, you know, what makes a concept successful? If you can just reiterate that.
Well,
for me.
let's what's the story you're working on? Let's just work on
Yeah,
it a bit.
sure. So I've been working on it for a while. Like, it's called Picaro, which means rogue in Spanish. Basically, there's this main character who resides on this planet that is oppressed by this tyranny, like this tyrannical force,
Okay.
and the main like philosophical conflict is basically um, like what would it take to, you know, stand against that force? Like, should he just, stay where he is? Like, should he be okay with being impressed, or should he, sacrifice, you know, his needs or his family's needs in order to, succeed in oppressing that force?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I guess like the main question that I wanted to, um, like to play with was, you know, can oppressing an oppressor be done in terms of morality if like all of our morals can be like corrupt? And it's just like it's complicated, but
I understand.
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you are. So if I'm going super simplistic, you are making a story that is oppressors versus the oppressed, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we're going with something like that, we can look at like one fairly simple, huge idea is like Star Wars, right? So we have the
Mm-hmm.
Empire, the oppressors versus the rebels, right? The oppressed. So when you're making a concept, the whole idea of making a concept is we're taking the two sides of this philosophical conflict, right? The oppressors versus the oppressed, and we are externalizing them in the characters in their world. So in regards to Star Wars, it's very simple, right? We've got the Empire and everything that comes with that, right? Then we've got the Rebels, everything that comes with that, right? So when you are building out the concept and you're trying to make it interesting, the Empire has like the nature of the Empire is, highly structured, all powerful, these kinds of things. But then we have stormtroopers, we have the Sith, we have the Empire officers and their kind of uniforms and this kind of thing, and their sort of regimented way of doing things, right? That is concept side one, right? The Empire. And then concept side two is the rebels, right? And so what are they? Well, it's like kind of the scrappy band of rebels that are using the I don't know if you've seen Andor, but like that is yeah. So like Andor is really heavy on the whole oppressors versus oppressed kind of idea with that. And so then you have like the scrappy band of rebels and what makes them them. And so when you're going for a concept, like you don't have to go don't overcomplicate it, right? You're just setting up the two worlds of Empire versus Rebels, right? What is your story's version of the Empire versus the Rebels? And then once you have that, then you can make it more complex in the sense of, okay, what elements of the Empire or the oppressors are more sympathetic to the other side or are in that situation for reasons they don't want to be? And then on the other side, what elements of the oppressed would go to the other side if given the opportunity, or would lie or would be traitors or these kinds of things, and what would that look like? And those are going to be the character nuance elements of the concept world that you've built, right? So with something like Truman Show, the Truman Show is a super like heady concept, right? Like it's kind of, we've got like the surveillance state versus, like finding your freedom kind of thing, living your like real life. And so because of that, the concept is super like high level and works very well, but it's harder to look at that movie and kind of see the two sides immediately. But if you're going for something that's like oppressors versus oppressed, then you don't have to go crazy with it. Just set up the two worlds, right? Who are the kings? Who are the slaves? Right? And then, and what does that look like in your universe? And then you can use characters to make those two sides more nuanced, right? So this is also where like character web can come into this.
Right.
Where let me I'm gonna, and this is gonna be on the live stream.
Like four corner opposition.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you have four corner opposition, you can essentially think of it like this. And if you're looking at the live stream, you'll see me drawing here. But so you can almost think of your story as like the white chess pieces and the black chess pieces, right? Like you have these two clear sides of philosophical and external conflict, right? So if we have like, let's say we've got the white chess pieces over here, and then we've got the black chess pieces over here, right? Then, right, that's like, okay, now we have two clear external sides, right? Pretty obvious. From there, we get more specific by saying, okay, we can actually divide these, like, so we got side one, side two. Now we can divide these external worlds with characters that are kind of either that are not truly on that side philosophically. So like, okay, we got this external side, but then let's say you have this army of like the white chess pieces, and then we have these two viewpoints in the story. Some of the characters that are a part of that are a part of these white chess pieces might have, the viewpoint one, but then some of them can have the viewpoint two, right? You can kind of think of it like this. Same with the other side, right? So then that's kind of how you can create more of this nuanced look where you have this concept that is these two big sides, right? Army 1 versus Army 2. But then there's people in Army 1 that are sympathetic to Army 2, and there's people in Army 2 that are sympathetic to Army 1 for different reasons, right? That's essentially how you create a society, right? That's how your story goes from cookie cutter characters into this society of characters where the different positions within a society are represented. Because what's interesting about life, because stories mirror life, is that every time we have some sort of two-side big disagreement, even if there's just four characters here, right? And that's why even you have character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4. Even if we just have four characters, you can have this nuance, and then you can have this full representation of like the viewpoints that would be in a society.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because you're going to have people that, are fully against the oppressors. You're going to have people that are being oppressed but are okay with that or are comfortable in their surroundings, right? And then on the other side, you're going to have people that absolutely hate and put down the oppressed, and then you're going to have people that are born into this oppressor world but are sympathetic to the oppressed, right? And then you have all the nuance that can come within that. And so, hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, that is so helpful. Thank you so much. Like my brain just immediately overcomplicates everything. So it's really nice to have somebody just like lay it all out very nicely. So yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that's a huge thing, right? Like everyone is overcomplicating their story on all levels, right? So when you it's big ideas like this, right? Like your big concept, people want to overcomplicate. It's like, oh, well, I have 6 philosophical conflicts. Like, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't. Yeah. And then when you get into structure, people want to be like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then in your scenes, people want to have 17 things happening. But like, you have two clear viewpoints that are in conflict that are usually like binary. They are attached in a way, like they are their own yin and yang, right? So you have like lying or not lying, right? That's kind of, or like Little Miss Sunshine. Does your public image matter or does your private family life matter, right? Like they are binary. They are yin and yang. Then you have the concept sides that are expressing that. And then, you have your structural beats. I'm a big fan of 1 story circle per act. I think there's 4 acts in a story or like in a screenplay. And then in a scene with that choices video I put out, have one key choice that the characters are making in that scene and just do one, right? There's no need to have 7. It's like, oh, I have 4 choices in this scene. It's like, well, split them up, right? Have 2 scenes or 3 scenes, right?
Yep.
So, like, and I think also people forget that if you, let's say you write the story, right, and you want to make it yourself, or you want to sell it, or anything like this, you have to keep in mind that people don't know you, they don't know your life context, they can't see inside your brain. And so if you're being super complex, it's not going to transfer to them because they're not you, right? They're not inside your head. And a lot of people, it's like, back in the 2015, 2016, like election cycle, people were saying things like, oh, Donald Trump talks at like a 3rd grade reading level. It's like, because you have to be simple, right? Because people do not understand what it is you are saying if you are being complex.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly like kind of what I found when I guess my peer review of my writing was like a bit better than I was thinking. Just because like when I think of something and I put it on the paper, I'm looking at it for so long, and it kind of just, I don't know, just overcomplicates itself in itself. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our brains do that naturally, right? So like you have a ton of thoughts in your head all the time, and then you feel like you get glimpses of this great story idea and it feels great, right? You have this feeling that it feels great, but then you try to actually transfer it out and then it's all messy. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And you have to embrace the initial messiness, but then this is why I was talking about in the beginning, this is why a framework of outlining is so powerful. Because you can allow yourself to be messy, right? When I have ideas for the screenplay I'm working on now, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I've got a dialogue piece, or, oh, I thought about this concept element, or, oh, this could be a character choice, or like ideas are going to just come to you in different ways. But if you have a way of putting them in the right buckets, it helps you keep your story clear.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I want to get other people on, so I really do appreciate what you're doing. This is really nice. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Perfect. Glad
Have
you
a
came
good
on.
night. Yeah. All right.
All right. Let's keep it rolling. All right. Jason, I see, is here. I'll pull Jason in. What's going on, Jason?
Hey, you can hear me all right, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So, I'm trying to begin the foundation of my story. So what I'm doing, I made a wish list of all the things I truly love about movies as instructed by Anatomy of Story.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm now trying to figure out is how do I make a lot of premises? And when I'm done making, which ones are the best ones to move forward with?
So,
If that makes sense.
yeah. So, okay. One of my big beliefs about story is that the best stories that we can tell are the ones that are personally meaningful to us, in the sense of they are about something that we believe in, right? Something that a personal journey that we went through that changed our views on life, that we now want to put into a story, or just a simple story about something we believe in, like something as simple as be brave, right, or be courageous, right? Very even some of these basic ideas. But to me, the foundation of a story is going to be beliefs, right? Is going to be the worldview, the philosophy that is being expressed through that story. And so what I would say is, when you're looking at what kind of premises, and if by premise you kind of mean story concepts or initial starting points of ideas, the best way to make those decisions from my perspective is going to be which of those are most personally meaningful to you. Because the reality is you can have a great concept idea that sounds awesome, but then it's just that, right? It's just a cool sounding two ideas being thrown together, right? But to actually bring that and express that in a well-made story is going to be a different thing altogether. And also writing a story is difficult, right? Especially if you're writing 100 pages, 120 pages, this kind of thing. And so if it is something that you believe in, something that you want to actually express, that is what is going to keep you writing when you don't feel like writing. So I would say if you're kind of doing like a premise brainstorm, an idea brainstorm, totally cool. Definitely do that. And then once you're trying to filter out, figure out which of them are the most meaningful to you, and then think about why that is. Why do you resonate on like a meaningful level with some of them more than others? But if you're just going off of, okay, well, I want to do like, unicorns in space. So it's like, okay, well, that's just not going to connect with you. And because of that, it's not going to connect with the audience.
No, it doesn't.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Completely.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Yeah, you're the best, Tyler. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. It's good to see you again. All right. I'm going to quickly catch up on chat here real fast. You guys can all enjoy my terrible webcam quality because I went 5 months or whatever it was without streaming and still did not buy a capture card that's compatible with Mac. So you guys get to deal with this. All right. I'm low in volume. Josh, is my volume low or am I good? I tried it on YouTube and you sound pretty good. Okay. I can bump my audio a little bit though. Let me see. I'm pretty sure I can. Advanced audio properties. Yes. Let me bump this a bit. Just a little bit. Okay. That should be a little bit louder. Check. 1, 2. Tyler, what happened with tot development? It was a unclear thing, right? It was like, it wasn't even a business. It was just it ended up not having the necessary clarity it needed to survive. That's what happened with tot development. Practical screenwriting, however, is very clear, and that's why it's better. All right. That's a nice volume. Awesome. Good to hear. Okay, let's continue taking questions here. I see Allie is waiting to speak. Hey, Allie, how are you?
Hello. Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. Got a quick question about outlining.
Sure.
I already put it in the Discord, but I wanted to hear you talk about it a little bit, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to tackle like writing a TV show, but I'm just kind of like all over the place. Like I don't even know where to start. If I should start with like, characters outlining, like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much to kind of like tackle all at once. So I'm just like kind of confused on like where I should start. How good of an idea do I need to have of like what I want the show to be, where I want it to go, how I want it to end before I should start writing,
Mm-hmm.
or if, I should start writing. Basically, like, what is your advice for like starting an outline or just like starting to gather ideas on how we should approach this?
Yeah, for sure. So with a TV series, I wouldn't focus on anything other than season 1. Like, if you're thinking about your finale and all this crazy stuff, like, that'll happen when it happens. Most of the best shows of all time, they had no idea how exactly it was going to end before they started. Now, you can have a few ideas of what that might look like, but I don't think you need to have this like fully and completely understood version of what it's going to look like, right? So if we think about something like Breaking Bad, the show starts off with Walter White, and we know he's going to go do his meth cooking and do this whole thing. And his brother-in-law is a DEA agent, right? So that tells us what our finale is going to be on some level before we're there, 5 seasons before, right? So we don't have to know, right. So we don't have to know exactly how that's going to look. But what we do know is these two characters are going to finally come to a head, and that is going to be the climax of this series, right? So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to have this big finale out in the distance, I would say the most you need to know about that is like who is going to be the most important antagonistic character when that happens, right? And so in Breaking Bad, we know that's going to be, I'm blanking on his name, but his DEA agent brother-in-law.
Hank Schrader.
Hank Schrader, yes. So now we're just focusing on season 1. So what I would do first is, I think, always your philosophical conflict, your characters, your concept, right? These are your 3 big building blocks of what is going to make your show, right? So we have, again, I'm just going to keep using Breaking Bad. We have this philosophical conflict ultimately about, from his kind of big perspective, it's like criminals versus authorities, but really in Walter's arc, it's staying asleep, right? Living as a sleepwalker, or waking up and taking control of your life, whatever that looks like. And so Breaking Bad is about this guy who gets this cancer diagnosis and finally wakes up and decides he's not going to be a pushover and he's going to do what he wants. And so we essentially watch that happen. So understanding what it is you want to say is super, super important. And then understanding your concept is going to obviously be very, very important. And understanding the key characters that are going to be involved in that season 1 is going to be important. And that's going to be the case whether you're working on a TV series, whether you're working on a short script, whether you're working on a feature, right? That is the most important, just like base foundations of what's going on. Once we actually get into how are we going to set this up, this is where I'm going to go to the whiteboard, and you can see this on the live stream. Okay. Let me put this on screen. All right. So once we're actually going to the season itself, right, we've got season 1, and we're going to go through this. So let's say, do you have an idea of how many episodes you'd like to have in this first season?
Let's go with 10.
Let's go with 10. Okay. So if we have 10 episodes, now we can say, I'm just going to write this out, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like I was talking to somebody a couple people back, a story circle is going to work at all levels of your story, right? So whether you're writing one TV episode, right, like a pilot, or whether you are looking at your big season, right, you can think about the story from these big elements. So you have the first 1 through 5 episodes of your story is going to be the first half of your story circle, essentially. 6 through 10 is going to be the second big half, right? So as you're trying to figure this out, the most important things to give you just a broad sense of what's going to happen in the season is going to be what is happening at your midpoint, which in your case is going to be either episode 5 or episode 6, depending on how you want to do it. And then what's happening at your climax, which is going to be episode 10, and your finale. And then obviously what is your pilot, and the pilot is going to have the important inciting incident of the story, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at a season, again, you don't have to know all these little itty bitty things about what's happening in every single episode, right? Right now, you need to get a sense of how do I want this to look starting wise? What do I want to happen in the midpoint? Essentially, your character is going to have a goal up to the midpoint, and then something huge. We're going to have a big 6. We're going to have a big cost, a big surprise problem that is going to upset what's going on and then set them on a new trajectory for the essentially second story here. Because that's every story, however big it is, has a setup and a payoff to it, right? And so it divides in half here. So the first half of your story is going to be the setup at whatever level. The second half is going to be the payoff. So in your case, in this season, episodes 1 through 5, there's not all going to be set up, but the idea is we are in the first story here, right? Like you can think of your season as 2 stories. Your character going to the midpoint first, and then the second story of them having some sort of huge problem. Likely this midpoint is going to be a big loss so that we can actually have a win at the climax, right? So what happens is your midpoint in a traditional like hero's journey, my character wins at the end of the story. You want the opposite of that to be your midpoint, right? So we get a loss at the midpoint, we get a big win at the climax. If it's tragic and super sad, they lose at the end, then we have them have some sort of big win at the midpoint, right? The idea is we want to bring them down to bring them up, or bring them up to bring them down. So what you should focus on is getting a sense of the big story circle of this season first, and understanding that this 5 and 6 sort of point, like their big get and then their huge pay, is going to happen at this midpoint. And then their big 7 is going to be their climax, and that's going to be our finale. Understanding those 2 big beats, and then understanding our 3, which is our inciting problem, our inciting incident, that's going to happen in this pilot. And then we want to know what's actually going on in this pilot. And this is actually the episode that you're writing, right? So I would not recommend writing, for now, I wouldn't recommend writing or thinking about writing anything other than episode 1, the pilot. Right? Because right now we're just outlining these other pieces. All of this is going to be like, this is kind of our 4. This is like plan of action, this kind of thing. We need to understand this pilot. We need to understand this midpoint. We need to understand our finale. That's where I would start.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Thank you so much.
For sure.
And thanks for doing this whole Discord thing. It's such an awesome opportunity to be able to ask you these questions. So thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I plan to do a lot more of these, so it should be fun.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. And also, as we're talking about a big season, thinking about your, or even thinking about your feature, this kind of thing. There are different beats that are going to be, I don't know if I should get into all this right now. I'm going to wait for this later. There's a video. It'll be a video. I don't want to get into all this right now. But yeah, let's see, desktop. Yeah, this 3 here, right? This 3 is going to be our inciting incident of our story. Whoops. 3 is going to be our big inciting incident here, right? The 3 is going to be a huge point in a story, and that is going to be the defining element of your pilot, right? There's going to be more elements in your pilot, of course, because your pilot has a whole story circle to it, but the inciting incident is a huge, huge piece here. And then at your midpoint, the 6, this big pay, right? Because it's a loss. It's the big, there should be a huge surprise, a huge surprise problem here. So if you guys are writing TV series I, who knows? We want a huge surprise problem at this midpoint, right? If you can answer what is the big surprise problem that's going to totally destroy my character's progress and make them suffer horribly at my midpoint, great. And then the 7, right, the climactic choice, that is what is going to define your end episode. So if you're writing 10 episodes, that would be your episode 10. Now, one of my favorite shows, Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders has 6 episodes per season, and I really, really like that format. I feel like 10 can kind of be long. Not always, and I think Breaking Bad has like an insane number of, I think it has like 14 or 16 episodes a season. It's like stupid long. But 6 is really nice, and then again, you just do the same thing, but smaller, right? So it's like 1, 2, 3, boom, 4, 5, 6. First story, second story. Our midpoint is probably going to be here. Our finale is going to be here. And then this is a story circle, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then same thing, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inciting incident happens in the pilot. All that jazz. 13 episodes per? Okay, gotcha. But yeah, right. And this again, guys, this is what I'm talking about fractals, right? About this idea that a story circle can be used at different levels of your story. That's what makes it so valuable. So it's like every time, no matter, it's like if I had a story, right? And this story is 6,000 episodes long, right? It's like, oh my gosh, how could I possibly figure out what to do in this 6,000 episode story? Well, episode 3,000 is going to be my midpoint, right? So it's like, no matter how big you want to stretch this thing out, you can still slap a big old story circle on this bad boy and and make it work. This is getting insanely messy, but that's the idea, right? The idea is no story length becomes too big or too problematic for you because you can start by understanding, okay, well, I have this tool that helps me understand story at any length. And then you can go from there. All right. Let's keep it moving. XI already had a question, so I'm going to go to Marlboro here. Hey, Marlboro, how are you?
I'm good. I hope you're well too. So yeah, English isn't my native language. Okay, so you gotta bear with me.
I'll bear with you.
Okay. So yeah, people get ideas for a screenplay in like different ways, right? Like some people start with a scene idea or a character concept or something like that. So personally, I often start with, by focusing on themes and philosophical conflicts. But when I do that, I sometimes struggle to make them come alive, like in a story, and to externalize it. So I come up with all these random ideas which doesn't really fit the narrative or like feels forced, but it supports the theme. So, like, do you have any tips on creating a narrative that naturally supports the theme without feeling forced or artificial?
So the biggest place to start is making sure that your theme is actually simple and clear enough, or at least let's say that your philosophical conflict, right, setting up the two sides, right, that two yin and yang that I was talking about, that's clear enough. So do you have a particular philosophical conflict that you've been trying to look at in a story?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm working on a short script. So I'm trying to explore this theme about nostalgia, actually. A nostalgic man who has issues with like moving on. Like he thinks of, I mean, he doesn't really live in the moment. Rather, he just, always be nostalgic. And so, what I want to say with that is that, like, when you're actually living it, you don't feel that it's so precious or like poetic or something. But like when you come out of it, then later you feel like it's poetic or something. So yeah.
Okay. So one good way of figuring out how you're going to externalize a particular theme or philosophical conflict is figuring out how to make it a choice, right? So in that last video I put up on YouTube, the big scene that I went back to over and over again was this ice cream scene, right? So you have this little scene where the big two ideas of the story are your public image versus your private life. And this is about kind of, are you a winner in the eyes of the public, or does it only matter what you think and what the important people in your life thinks, right? So that big idea conflict comes down into this scene about a little girl who has to choose whether or not to eat this ice cream in front of her. Her father does not want her to eat this ice cream because he's standing on this public image side. She's about to compete in a beauty pageant, and he's saying, that beauty queens don't eat ice cream, and he's making this argument. Her mom is on the other side saying, listen, whatever you want, that's what's okay, right? So if you want to eat the ice cream, that's okay, right? Because you're not defined by your public image. And this question or this dilemma between the two sides is externalized through this choice of, is she going to eat the ice cream or not? So let's run a little experiment here. What would you say are the two sides of your philosophical conflict, and how might we make that a scene with a scene choice?
I don't really know, man. I'm just starting to work on it, actually. Yeah, at first I thought of this guy who's not having such an interesting life, who's like an office worker, who's avoiding actually living in the moment. As in, when people like invite him to go out and all of that, like he doesn't go out. But when he comes back home, like he finds all these Polaroids of something that happened in the past, and then he talks about it. Then he gets nostalgic about it. So he wants to have a.
What's in the Polaroids?
So it's like his memory with a person. So he wants to have a reunion with them.
Okay.
So it's like, so when he actually does that, when he reunites with them, he realizes that like whatever he had in his mind about this memory, like it's not exactly what's there like with that person. I mean, he had a completely different memory of her. And then when he sees her and she talks and everything, they have all these misunderstandings and everything, then he realizes that like he forgot about the bad stuff that happened before, and he just remembers the nice things. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. So it seems like you have a pretty decent sense of what needs to happen here, in the sense of he's making choices. So it's kind of nostalgia versus moving on, right? We're like, going backwards, going to what you had before versus moving on. So to me, it seems like the easiest way, especially because you're making this kind of about a previous relationship that this person had. To me, the easiest way to bring this into a story would be nostalgia side is this old, like ex-girlfriend or whoever this is. And then when he's making choices to meet up with her, see her again, relive the past, he's in that nostalgia viewpoint. And then if you want him to go through a change, right, he meets up with her, that's your 5, that's your get. And then your problem, right, your 6, is it's not the same. He was sugarcoating. His memory was sugarcoating how it really was. So they have some sort of huge fight. They have something like this, and then you can make the change or the new him actually making decisions on the other way to maybe it can be a new person. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And so he maybe chooses to leave this person after meeting up with her, and then as the story goes forward, he finds someone else. Like, that is the most basic version that I would go with based on what you said. But I think the best way to bring this forward is, like, you have a person who is symbolizing nostalgia, right? You have that. You probably need a person or some other goal, but usually characters are the best. Characters are the most important thing in story. If you read my announcement in the Discord today. And so it seems like the best way to symbolize that would be another character that is the symbol of him moving on.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. I mean, yeah, I kind of knew it already, but like, yeah, I just want to like hear something from someone else. That's all. Yeah, it does help.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
All right. Let's keep it moving here. With Black Jesus.
What up? What up?
What up? What up?
You like the name?
Yeah, I love the name, man.
All right, nice. Hey, I just want to give you your flowers, Tyler, before I start, man. That Four Corner opposition video is the best video I've seen on Four Corner.
I appreciate that.
Fire. But damn, Tyler, every time I joined, like I put my hand up, I was like, all right, I'm gonna ask this question. Then you answered it talking to somebody else. So I left, and I was like, I was thinking something, and then you answered it again. But I got something for you.
All right.
I'm having trouble mostly with my philosophical question, my conflict.
Okay.
I got the story in my head, right? But I don't know why I'm writing it. It just sounds cool to me, but I don't know how to make it mean something. You know what I mean? I don't know how to even figure that out, to be honest. I've been just spending this whole month. Like, I'm getting the plot down, but I don't know what's the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, right now it's just action, tension. I don't know how to make it matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Would you mind telling me some about your idea?
Okay, yeah. So I told you I'm a writer, so this is like a story. Oh yeah, this is a web novel.
You're a writer? What?
Yeah.
We have writers in this Discord? That's crazy.
Yeah, hey, your stuff's good, man. I don't even care. You know what I'm saying? But I write books, so
okay.
My idea here is like a never-ending story type. Like that's why it's kind of funny you mentioned like 6,000 page, 6,000 episode thing. That's kind of what I'm going for.
Okay.
That's why I was like, damn, you say everything I'm about to do. But I'm having trouble figuring out how to make it meaningful and last long, right? I don't know how to keep the story going and still talk about stuff and have it meaningful if I'm writing like 400K words a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm having trouble with that. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to just write to write, you know what I mean? I want to write a lot, but I also want it to matter. I want people to think. I want people to have like feelings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just really having trouble with that. But my story is about cultivation. I don't know if you know that.
Cultivation?
Like, yeah. So it's basically, you know, like martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
So think about like Dragon Ball Z. It's kind of like that where you like gather the energy around you, get stronger, fight, get insights, you know, kind of like that.
Yeah.
So my character is a gang member, but he doesn't want to be in the gang, right?
Okay.
So he's the middle child of the he's the middle child of the gang leader, right? So he's kind of grandfathered in, right? He's forced into it, but he doesn't want to be in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's taking steps to get rid of that, like to get out, but his father goes missing, and when that happens, there's a big power vacuum, right? Because he's one of the they're one of the strongest gangs. So now he needs to come back into the fold in the family, right? Because other gangs, right, the only reason they weren't getting attacked, right, because they got all the prime land territory, is because of him. Now that he's missing, everybody's eyeing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he decides to come back. Sounds like the Godfather. Yeah, kind of like that. So he has to step up. And that's kind of what I wanted to do in a sense. I want to talk about the cost of power. Like, and he has to essentially get his power. He's weak. And then he has to go somewhere to get stronger and find out information. It's called a sect. It's like a magical school, magical fighting school, pretty much.
Okay.
Group.
So why don't you feel like, you said the cost of power, why do you feel like that's not meaningful?
I don't know. I feel because I don't know where I want to take it, right? Because I want him to have to do stuff he doesn't want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, example, I was thinking he has to kick in the door to interrogate somebody, right? He doesn't want to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could do the cost of power or something like that, right? Because he's losing his soul a little bit, right? Because he has to save / find out what his father's doing or where he's at. And to do that, he needs to take actions that are going to haunt him, hurt him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't, is that good enough? I don't know. I've been struggling with this all month, man. Like, I was trying to write for Nano, and I'm like, shit, is this, my bad, I'm cussing, my bad. Shoot.
Well,
I don't know.
well, okay. Here's what I would say. I think stories about power, I love stories about power. I think power is a fascinating topic. I'm a Game of Thrones fan.
I love Game of Thrones, yep.
And I read a super long Napoleon biography. So like I'm very interested in power and power dynamics and those kinds of things. And I think that can be very meaningful.
Yeah.
But do you have personal life experience with power and power dynamics? Is this story from your personal life experience in some way?
Not really.
That's why it doesn't feel meaningful to you.
Okay.
Okay. So like, it's not that the topic is not meaningful. It's that if you are going to write something that feels meaningful to you, it has to be on some level your experience, right? Something that you have a certain level of knowledge in. And so you can either, go on a real life adventure or real life story of learning about that. Or I would say you could come back to yourself and say, okay, what are the things that have already happened to me? What are some of the formative things that have happened in my life that I can write about? You're saying, I saw earlier that in the chats when we were talking briefly that like you write books, that you want to write a ton of words, and I think that's great. But I'm also a believer in your real life, making your real life as interesting as possible, and trying things and having real life stories happen to you and deal with difficulty, so that you have those things to write about. And I'm sure you have those things. I'm not saying, oh, you've got nothing to write about, blah, blah, blah. But what I would say is one of the best places to start finding good story ideas for yourself would be, what are some of the, if you could stop and think about all of the lowest points in your life, what was happening and why? What was that happening? And what did you take away from that? And that was good. How did you learn from that? How did you change? Were there lies that you had believed that you shed because of those difficult experiences, that is where your meaningful story is going to sit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, because I have no personal connection with the story, that's why it's ringing false. That's what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dang. Oh, damn. Okay. Like a psychologist. All right. You just cracked up and like, why is this not working? But I really want to make this work, though. Huh.
Well, listen, you can still use the world that you have.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
about, like, this is why understanding what the different layers of your story are, this is why that's important, right? Because then you, like, when you understand that a story is not just sitting and being inspired and typing, but it is different, like, it's almost like a car engine, right? Where there are different elements of the machine, and that you can move and shape different elements of that machine as you are building that story, right? Like, there is a mechanical nature to stories. And so if you have a story world and characters and some of these bases, you know, some of this stuff that you like, you can keep all of that. But you need to find the through line that relates to your actual personal lived life. And I think the best place to find those things is what are the terrible things that have happened, or the frustrating times in your life, the difficult things, the surprise, horrible events. That's where your good stories are.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I just got to pivot. Yeah, that makes sense. Shoot, man. I got time for one more question?
Yeah, man, shoot.
All right. I wanted to talk. This is kind of the same thing, but have you ever read The War of Art, like Resistance? Do you know what that is?
I know of the book, but I haven't read it.
Okay, so basically, you know, resistance is that little voice in your head, right? Every time you trying to write, you know, be like, go play some games. You know, you're hungry. Oh, you need to go tie your shoes. You know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, how do you deal with resistance? Because that's another. These two are like my main problems. Every time I'm getting ready to write, I check my phone, go on doom scrolling on Twitter, and it's like I don't know how to beat it. You know what I mean? So if you had any advice for like beating resistance, beating that voice in your head, you know what I mean? That'd be helpful.
Yeah. So I definitely have some stuff on this. Well, look, I think there's two pieces to changing your daily life and habits and that kind of stuff, right? You have throw your phone out the window. I mean, kinda, yeah. You have, so it's like you have things that you want to be doing in kind of one box, right? And then things that you don't want to be doing, right? And your other habit box, right? So you have like habits you want to do, like writing, habits you don't want to do, like doom scrolling, right? And to me, and doom scrolling, or, you know, checking Twitter, checking TikTok, scrolling through Instagram, these sorts of things, like, you know, that's one of many sort of addictions and things that can confuse and throw our minds in a ton of directions. What I have found is that you have to start with the, like, negating bad habits first, right? So, like, rather than starting with, oh, okay, I got to write all these pages while I, you know, doom scroll and eat terrible food and, you know, do all these other things that are bad for me all the time. I have found that you have to start with the stuff that you don't want to do, right? Because first you just have to get in a state of, I'm bored, right? I don't have other things to be doing, right? That's great, because now it's like, well, if I don't have other things to be doing at all, then it's way easier to write, right? So, like, if you're doing stuff like doom scrolling, here's what I would say on that. Like, if we want to get real specific, there's an app called Opal. This is the app that I use. It's called Opal, O-P-A-L. And Opal allows you to essentially, like, it's a really strong, really well-made app blocking app where you can set it to literally not allow you to access certain apps in a certain amount of time, like in the day. So, like, for example, One of the ways that I've used it a lot is like my mornings. So I'll have like my social media apps blocked from like 6 a.m. until like 11. So it's like no matter what I'm doing in that morning, I cannot sit on my phone and look at, these, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, this stuff for this amount of time, right? I think a huge, our relationship to technology is huge. Like one of the biggest things in our world right now, because technology is super powerful. In one way, we can do crazy stuff like this, where I'm talking to strangers over the internet, and we're like communicating and having a good time. But then at the same time, it can also suck all of your attention away and kind of make you this drone. And so the biggest thing, Opal was great.
I already downloaded it. Yep.
Perfect. And then on your computer, I use a blocker called Cold Turkey Blocker, and that can block all sorts of stuff. And it's like that is the strongest desktop blocker I have found, because a lot of times, like if you block something on one browser, it doesn't do it for all of them. But Cold Turkey is all browsers. You cannot it's very strong. It also costs money. It's like $60 or something, and it's worth it. Okay. That's another great way to start. The big thing you have to do, in my mind, is to interrupt your habit loops, right? So what happens is you have these habit loops, and this is one of your habit loops is probably you sit down to write and then you check your phone, right? And then the next day you sit down to write and then you check your phone. And then you sit down to write and you check your phone. You sit down to write and check your phone. So now your brain, it's like part of the act of sitting down to write triggers your desire to check your phone, right? Because you have set this loop. And so essentially our entire lives are just the loop of the day that you build for yourself, right? And so if you want to have a different life, you have to create a different day that you live over and over again. And the best way to start making that weird, is to start interrupting your loops. And you can do that in all sorts of ways. Blockers and stuff are great. Also, if you want to get really hardcore with it, doing stuff like fasting, you don't eat, or you don't, drink anything, or you don't stuff like that. It's like you are interrupting loops, right? So it allows your body to sort of go through this reset, and your mind to kind of go through this reset to be like, okay, what am I doing every day? How am I doing that? And how are things attached to themselves, right? Because we try to think about habits as this bucket of, I have the habit of looking at my phone. It's like, well, no, you have the habit of the 18 other things you do that also trigger you to look at your phone in your day, at the particular house that you live in, and the restaurants you go to, and the DoorDash you get every day. It's all sort of looped together. And so if you want to actually break out of some of those things, you just kind of go, okay, how do I just create weird days for myself, right? How do I bust myself out of these loops? That's how people also get into a job they hate and then do it for 15 years, and then they wake up and they go, I can't believe I did this job for 15 years. It's like, yeah, because you set up a habit loop 15 years ago and you didn't have a single 48-hour period ever where you broke that habit loop, right? So, the short answer is blockers are really good on your phone. Blockers on your computer are really good. Whoops. What? Okay. Well, I don't know what happened there. That was strange. But yeah, there we go. I'll bring him, invite to speak. Yeah. There we go. Not quite sure what happened there. I don't know if I hit a button. No, I couldn't have. I have to hit 2 buttons to end it. Oh well. Anyways, we're all still here, so it's fine. But yeah, and here's the thing too, is what I've also known with habit building and stopping habits and starting habits and that kind of thing is once you really interrupt a loop, it's like the first 3 to 5 days of that loop being interrupted are the most annoying, right? But like it doesn't really take, like it has never taken 6 months for me to like get re-comfortable with some. It's like you get comfortable again pretty fast with a new routine. And so yeah, and I would start by negating your bad habits, because honestly, if you literally never worked on like the daily things you want to do and only ever worked on the daily things you want to not do, your life would be wildly better and you would be wildly more productive.
Yeah. Man, clap for this man. That was amazing. Woo! Hey, thank you, Tyler. That shit was, I mean, that stuff was amazing.
For sure.
You, that's all I got, man. Thank you. I'm going to definitely take your advice. Next time we talk, hopefully I'm like 30,000 words in, you know what I mean?
Perfect. Yeah. I'm and you know what? Like even with novels, I'm a big believer in outlining. There's a guy, his name is Eric, that I've been kind of working with him on his novel over the past couple of months. And he's a big outliner, and I think it has really, really helped. Like I'm a big believer in outlining. So yeah, man. Good luck.
Yep. Hey, thank you. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Let's keep it rolling. Hello again.
Hey, 2 more quick questions.
Sure.
Yeah, Nano didn't also go the way I hoped it did, so I'm trying to start over in December, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
So my first quick question is, you have like 4, right? Is it okay if each act in a story has like a different antagonist or oppositional force, or does it work better if it's somehow the same throughout?
Good question. So
Like, yeah.
Here, what I would say is you can have, the best way to do this is that all of your forces of antagonism, let's say that's 3 characters or something, they are all connected in some way, and they're all on that side of the, they're all on the opposing side of the philosophical conflict in some way. But they can be different characters. So, for example, in something like Batman Begins, our Act 1 antagonist ends up being Ra's al Ghul, right? What's that actor's name? I forget. What's his name? Liam Neeson. Yeah. So Liam Neeson is our Act 1 antagonist, right? Then Act 2A is Falcone, the big mob boss in Gotham. And Falcone is kind of our fairly normal, kind of cliche Gotham mob guy. But then we get a step up again with Scarecrow. It's like now Batman's facing this guy who's also directly connected to Falcone, Scarecrow, but he's more kind of super villainy, right? He's less, I'm just a mob guy. And then Act 3, we return to it being Ra's al Ghul once again. And Ra's al Ghul was the one that was working with Falcone and Scarecrow, and they're all connected. Dude spoiled Batman Begins completely, yeah. Batman Begins has been out for like 30 billion years. If you haven't seen it by now, that's on you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. My second question really quickly is, I'm writing a character versus technology story, and my protagonist is a young adult. So do you have advice on how I can structure the conflict so that she's still able to participate in a realistic way?
I would need some more details. Give me some more details about the story.
Sure. My premise is a mysterious app predicts the future accurately, offering users a glimpse of their fate. But for each revelation, it erases a cherished memory, forcing individuals to weigh the cost of foresight against the value of their past.
Wow, that's a pretty intense concept. It's cool. I feel like I can't immediately see how you're having it play. It feels so in the head of the character. Like, so it's memories versus their future, which I think is a cool idea. I don't know how. So like, how are you seeing the? Do you have an idea of how you want the plot to play out? Like, who's our big bad guy?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Should I try like personifying it somehow? Like you've got Neo versus Agent Smith, or you've got like Sarah Connor and like the Terminators.
So a huge belief of mine is that characters are gonna be the most important thing in your story in the sense of like even externally. So like your big antagonistic force should be a character, and even like like goals can be a character, right? Like Finding Nemo. The whole goal of the story is to find Nemo, right? So like I am hugely for personifying that. So I would say if you're gonna have this kind of story, maybe it's like the creator of this app is our big bad guy, or something like that. But I really think it needs to be a human being that we can place into scenes that is our bad guy.
Okay. That's it. I'm going to keep brainstorming, but thank you so much.
Cool. All right. We are back once again with our 12-ounce tube of sausage. What a hilarious Discord name, man.
Excellent. Thank you, bro. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay, so I have a question. The movie Gladiator, is it missing a beat? And the reason why I ask is because I was looking at stories where a character, like, starts from someplace high and then gets things taken away from them, and then they go on this, revenge kind of mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how does a character who gets basically the thing that makes their life worth living, when they get that taken away from them, how do they keep going? And I was like, Gladiator's a good movie. Let me watch Gladiator. How did they do it? And I'm watching it and I'm like, you know what, man? Like, there's a beat. I think there's a beat missing here, because when his family, and by the way, I'm going to spoil Gladiator, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. But yeah, they kill his family, and he basically gives up on living.
Mm-hmm.
After that. He loses the will to live. He's discovered in the desert or whatever, and they patch him up, and they're saying, you're a gladiator now, you're a slave, and you got to fight. And he's like, I don't want to do that, because he doesn't care. Even when they put the sword in his hand and they make him fight, he throws it on the ground, they kick his ass, he doesn't care, because he doesn't care about his well-being, because he doesn't care about being alive. And they're like, well, we're going to put you in anyway. And then they put him in, and then he fights. And that is like, to me, I'm like, wait a minute, like, this guy's not supposed to care, but he instinctively just like fights. And to me, that seems like a betrayal of where he's at right there. Like, because later on in the movie, he realizes he can win freedom. And there's like this idea of revenge. And I'm not saying this to shit on the movie. I love the movie, but it just seems like a betrayal of where he's at value-wise, that he decides to fight when he really shouldn't fight, because he doesn't care. His will to live was taken from him,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying there. I feel like I would chalk it up to simple, like, I mean, there's just kind of the instinctive desire not to allow someone else to take your life that he's kind of holding, especially like as a soldier, and because of that, I guess, like, I kind of see what you're saying, but I can't imagine, because I think if we're really getting into Gladiator here, it's like, okay, he doesn't have this huge will to live, but I also don't think he is allowing someone else to kill him, I guess. So it's like,
I guess if that's what gets him through it.
yeah, I don't know. Because I guess it's like he doesn't have a will to, keep fighting and go on this big revenge mission and that kind of thing. But maybe like being attacked sort of wakes him up again. And that's kind of what he does too. Because it's like he is a general. Like his whole thing is fighting. So he just kind of like falls back into... Because maybe it's like, is he maybe that's part of the real conflict of the film. Like, is he going to keep fighting or not, right? So he like kind of gives up. His family is killed and he gives up on fighting. And then through having to fight again, he sort of reignites that side of himself. He's like, no, I am a fighter. I do keep fighting. Maybe that's how it works.
So I guess when he said, I'm not going to fight, and then they're like, well, we're going to throw you in the ring anyway, and if you don't, you'll die. They throw him in the ring. Then he decides to fight. So is it that he just doesn't want to die?
I guess. I don't know. I mean,
anyway.
Because he says, because I don't really remember. So he says, I'm not going to fight before he goes out. It's like, I will not fight.
Not verbatim. It's a subtext of throwing the sword down and him saying he doesn't care.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was something that bothered me. Another thing that bothered me, and like maybe my perspective on this is skewed. Maybe you can give me some perspective on this, but like you've seen Django Unchained, right?
Yeah.
Tarantino. Okay. I love these kinds of movies. It's Count of Monte Cristo, Mask of Zorro kind of deal. Someone starts off at the bottom, mentor takes them under the wing, they become a badass, we get to see them be a badass. I should love this movie because I love movies like this, but like when I was thinking about it, I mean, I was entertained when I saw it, but when I was thinking about it, something that really bothered me about it was that like the story is essentially him going into hell to get his wife back from the devil, right? Mm-hmm. And as he goes into the deeper circles, like we should see him struggle in some kind of way. We should see him stumble because he's a man and men sin and they have weaknesses, and we know he wants revenge, but his main mission is getting his wife back. But we don't ever really see him stumble. Like once he becomes this, badass bounty hunter, he's just like this flat character, which isn't a problem. You can have a flat character if they're changing other people. Paddington does it. Maybe Paddington could have been the protagonist. But he doesn't change anyone. He just overcomes obstacles. He's never nervous, really, about being caught.
Sure.
And nothing he really does, threatens his goal, which is saving his wife. Like when we're watching this movie, like I really feel like we should be like he should stumble, and he should, for a second or maybe 2 seconds, he sort of makes the goal of revenge a little bit more important than saving his wife. And because of that, maybe he gets carried away sometimes, and we're like, what are you doing? Oh my God, you're gonna get caught. But that never happens. An obstacle comes, it's not even really an obstacle, he just takes care of it, and then he moves on. And then when, the poop hits the fan, it's not because of his own sin or his own mistake. It's because someone heard his wife talking, or someone saw his wife, talking to him, and is like, oh, they know each other. And that just feels like it took the conflict out of his hands.
Yeah.
I feel like that epiphany of them realizing who he is should have come from his own sin. And I love the character. I forget what his name is. Hans Landa, Christopher Waltz. I love that character, but like the fact that he's there to just bail out the protagonist, like it's a weakness, I think. But anyway, that was my perspective on it. What do you think?
I think you're totally right. I think that you can absolutely make an argument that once Django becomes the bounty hunter, and for most of his time in Candyland, you're right. It's kind of interesting because I hadn't really thought of it, but yeah, I cannot think of one important choice that he's making in Candyland that is him stepping out of line or causing some sort of issue. And he doesn't even really cause the climax, or he doesn't cause that, the I guess it's like the end of 2B kind of Dark Night of the Soul. It's like the Christoph Waltz character does, where he shoots Candy and we go from there. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I think he's kind of inactive, and I don't think he's making super important choices in that part of the story. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Everybody, you heard that. He said I was right. Okay. I only know these things because I watched these videos that he made. Okay. The logline video, excellent.
Fantastic.
I think once you can make a good logline, that one sentence tells the whole story, you can just put that on every page, and any page you're writing, it's just like the story will write itself if you can just get that log line.
It can definitely be helpful. I think understanding the good thing about a log line is it's giving you who your main character is, what your inciting incident is, aka your 3, right? And then what your big midpoint story goals should be, right? Or sometimes your climax goal, right? Your big 5, right? What they're going after. So yeah, and then obviously the stakes, like what's going to happen if they fail. So if you can understand the character, the inciting incident, their goal, and what's going to happen if they fail, it absolutely helps a lot for getting yourself started. 100%.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me.
For sure. Yeah, glad to have you here. All right. I see Zach's got his hand up. We'll keep moving on. What's up, Zach? Let's see if we get it to load. How are we doing in the YouTube chat? You guys all right? AI. Cool. You don't know what's going on? Never used Discord before. Here, let me move you out, Zach, and I'll bring you back up. Or I'll invite you back up here. Oh, I sent my question. Okay, Complex, you have a question? Okay, we'll get to that after Zach here.
Hey Tyler, can you hear me?
I can. What's going on, man?
Dude, this is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for your videos, man. They've taught me so much about screenwriting, and better than the film school that I went to. So
I appreciate that. We won't say what film school you went to. I said we won't say what film school you went to. No, we won't throw any shade.
Yeah, we won't say anything. We won't say anything, man. But I just want to force myself to think of a question because I just had to meet you over Discord. But we're seeing like a rise of, I guess my question starts with, I'm as a screenwriter and fan of film, I tend to recognize the major beats in the story, the act breaks and the Dark Night of a Soul, and it all kind of starts to get kind of, I don't know, I can recognize them very easily, and we're starting to see like a rise of different films that are just pushing genres like Barbarian, or stuff that juggles multiple characters. Like another good one was like Waves, that came out in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? What are your thoughts on those narratives, and can they be dramatic? And do they have a place? And are they going to become more prolific? And as regular audience goers become more familiar with these philosophical conflicts and beats of a story.
Are you talking about like more unconventional storytelling with
Yeah,
a strong
yeah,
structure?
yeah, exactly. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And
Yeah. So I watched Barbarian and hated it. I thought it was terrible. That's just my opinion. I think a lot of okay. I actually don't think we're going to be trending towards more and more unconventional storytelling. My view, and this is not the current view, but I think we're going to be trending towards more traditional storytelling with themes that actually matter. So I think part of it right now, I feel like right now, there seems to be these like camps that people get divided into. One of those camps is, oh, all the stories are big paint by numbers and they're, we can understand them and, we can see them, we can see the end coming a mile away. And then the other side is you're kind of like A24, the lobster, barbarian kind of, okay, we're going to continue to trend towards more unconventional kind of, or like the whale, I think, continue to trend towards more unconventional storytelling, and that's going to be more popular. And I kind of think both of those are kind of wrong. So I think part of the issue okay. So let's talk about the paint by numbers type stories first. You look at something like, let's say Marvel, right? Big blockbusters. You could consider these very much like your kind of more hero's journey type stories, like your more paint by numbersy type stories. When the problem with something like Marvel is not that it is hitting structural beats. And I think the problem with a lot of stories that feel formulaic or paint by numbers is not that they are hitting structural beats, but that the thematic message that they are transmitting is overly basic or generic or just not that interesting or something that has been heard a million times, because the purpose of the film is not to actually change culture. The purpose of the film is to make $1 billion at the box office and keep people coming to the next one, because Hollywood makes movies for money. They do not make movies to change people's lives for the better. So because of that, we get these paint by numbers movies that don't feel innovative, not because clear structure is bad for story, but because they are not built to be innovative. They are not built to teach or be of help to society in any way. They are built to get money. And there's nothing wrong with getting money, but I think Hollywood, and this is like many industries, right? And this is where the world that we live in at large collides with the films that exist in our world, where we live in a world that is controlled by a particular group of people that wants a particular set of stasis in that world, right? We want college and cars, and we all live in overpriced apartments, and we want a certain stasis of that reality that our sort of the overlords above have given to us, right? Within that, they don't want deeply, dramatically, societally changing art. They want art that paints by the numbers and sticks within the society that they have set up for us to be peons inside of. So that's why I think some of the movies feel like, oh, this feels so formulaic. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. This is kind of boring. I've seen, this is Captain America 78. Who cares? It's not a structural issue. Then you go look at something that's, more of the A24 sort of library of films. And this is where we get sort of this postmodern, almost even, to a certain extent, like avant-garde type of filmmaking that I despise. I hate it. Because it is the other side of not having a message, where it is essentially the the artistic equivalent of modern art, which is let's put up garbage on the wall and act like it's art. And it's really vibey, and it's got a real nice visual to it, and it's got a real nice sound, and like people really look earnest staring at each other in the camera, but it's about nothing. And then you ask the director or the writer of this thing, what's this about? And it's like, oh, it's about these 17 themes, because they don't have an actual real vision for the story, and they're not communicating strongly. And so I have been on the outside of sort of that world for a while, where like I have tried to give some of these movies like the benefit of the doubt, and every single time I come out disappointed and wish I hadn't watched it. My ultimate desire, and I think the internet can be a huge part of the movement of this, is that we get away from, upper management approved film, paint by numbers films, and we get away from postmodern, millennial, avant-garde, I'm so cool at a cocktail party films, and we find a middle ground of actual films with clarity in their structure, as well as genuine thematic truth and depth to them. And that is the world that I would like to live in, and I hope that we can trend in that direction.
Are there any recent movies that have come out in the past few years that you believe are worth studying?
So I don't think a great film, and I haven't seen all of the films, but I don't think a great film has been made since 2019. And I believe let's just get into it, Let's get into it. I think so. Here's what happened. Okay, we were all living life. Let's go back before 2016, before Donald J became POTUS of the great 50 states, right? We're all living life, doing this whole big thing. We're all out here. We're loving the movies. Marvel's big. We're doing it all. Life's great, right? Donald Trump runs for president, and that is one of the most important things to happen in not only American history but also global history, because what happens is we have this huge media shift suddenly where, boom, this man is enemy number one, and sort of all of the sort of world around him is enemy number one, and then he ends up winning, right? Which makes it even crazier. So we have this guy come out of nowhere, win the presidency because of the internet, because he had Twitter, because he had a mouthpiece to the people that was not through the traditional media. And the traditional media sort of freaks out about this. The traditional media is also connected to Hollywood. So what happens is we have Donald Trump wins president. We have all these cancellations. And then we have sort of the Me Too era and the cancellation era, right? So Harvey Weinstein is out. John Lasseter is out. A lot of the people that, many of them not good people, like Weinstein, I think a lot of people, this is going to be fun. A lot of people, Harvey Weinstein is now remembered as the big bad villain of the film industry. But what people don't remember is Harvey Weinstein was integral in creating some of the most iconic films of his generation, right? All the Tarantino films happened because of Weinstein. Good Will Hunting, I believe, was because of Weinstein. Snowpiercer, one of my favorites. That was Snowpiercer. So Bong Joon-ho, before he goes and wins Best Picture for Parasite, makes a film with Weinstein, and Weinstein puts it together, right? He's the one that gets Chris Evans. He's the one that takes this big bet on this director out of South Korea, right? So what happens is we have this crazy domino effect of Donald Trump wins the presidency. We have all these cancellations go through. We have this whole era of from 2016 to 2020 of a lot of this stuff happening. What this does is the sort of, I would say, I guess, corporate media, including Hollywood, has this massive shift, not only on the films that are made, but also the internal structure of their companies. And so what happened was you have a lot of people, because Hollywood is a place full of a lot of evil people. A lot of very evil people are in Hollywood, even now. And it has been that way for a very, very long time. This has been a place of a lot of evil for a very long time. And not everyone is evil. Not all these filmmakers are evil, but there's, everyone is a yin and a yang, right? There are good things about people and there are bad things about people. No one is one or the other. And so you essentially have these titans of storytelling, some of them not so great guys like Weinstein, that either are fired or are canceled or just retire and are done with it all. So what happens is we have this huge shift from the industry that existed pre-2016 into the industry we have now, which is wildly more corporatized and is wildly less interesting and wildly less creative. And so what did that do? Well, it created a lot of worse products. It created a lot worse movies. And so then it's like you have the 2020 Best Picture, which nobody really watched. You have the 2021 Best Picture, nobody really watches. You get Oppenheimer, which is nowhere near Nolan's best. And people are not barely talking about Oppenheimer now. Barbie dominates the box office. We have Mission Impossible 78. We've got, and so what happens is we have this kind of, this big shift that has occurred in the film industry, where the people, John Lasseter of Pixar is out. He got Me Too'd on like a smaller level. And so you have a lot of these people that are getting ousted. And this is also the internet colliding with the traditional media, right? So you have this world of the old way that things used to be done now colliding with things like Twitter and Instagram, and the fact that everybody's got a camera phone, and the fact that everybody has an ability to, say their viewpoint. And that creates a huge societal shift. And so, because of this, we are literally watching. You want to talk about philosophical conflict? We are in the midst of a wild philosophical conflict between the old world that we all live inside of, or we live in the archaeological ruins of the world that was built for us in 1960, but we live mentally in this world, right? In Discord and Twitter and YouTube live streams and a random guy with no credentials on the internet saying whatever he wants to his audience, right? And so I think that nothing is in stasis. Nothing stays the same. Everything is changing. And the more you can realize that, the more you can make moves that help you. And I think that right now, the old industry is films are super expensive by and large, even a low budget film, right? Somebody says a low budget film, they mean a film that's $500,000, right? It's like low budget film is $500,000. That's a ton of money for anyone, right? And so what happens is you have the internet takes over low budget media first, right? Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Vine, right? And then all these eyeballs that used to only be dominated by CNN and Fox News and Hollywood are now scattered across the internet on streamers and YouTubers and Twitter people and everybody with 5,000 followers who wants to call themselves an influencer. And the last giant to fall of that is going to be films, because they're expensive. And only Hollywood has the money and the distribution to actually make the movies, by and large. And so, because of that, they're going to be the last to fall. But what we're seeing right now is all the talent. Like if you went to 1985, right? Anybody who wanted to be in media, anyone who was an artist, all these people, they were clamoring to be in Hollywood. Now where are they? They're on YouTube, or they're on TikTok, right? The youthful soul of the youthful artistic soul is no longer in Hollywood cubicles begging a producer who hates them to read their screenplay, right? They're not doing it. It's not what's happening anymore. And so, which I think that's good. I think because now it's demonopolizing media. But what we're seeing right now is that the big boys who have the $200 million to make a movie, are still doing their best, but they're putting that $200 million into a machine that is now super corporatized and way more lame and way more artistically strict than it was in 2012, and then it was especially pre-2008. Because the writer's strike also had a huge impact on this. You go to Hollywood pre-08, and it's another wholly different world, right? Where writers are selling screenplays for $1 million. That is never going to happen again. No one is ever going to sell a screenplay to Hollywood for $1 million after 2008. It's just not going to happen. If you're in 2007 and you're one of the lucky writers that sold a script for that much, lucky you, but the door is shut. That's never going to happen again. It's also interesting that you have the 2008 writer strike. And what's very interesting about that is 2 reality shows came out of the 2008 writer strike, and 2 important people were in each of those respective reality shows. And those 2 people are still wildly relevant today. Pop quiz, Zach, do you know what those 2 reality shows were that came out only because of the 2008 writer strike?
I have no clue.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians and The Apprentice. So Kim Kardashian got her show because of the 2008 writer strike. Donald J. Trump got his show because of the 2008 writer strike. Because reality TV, a lot of people shifted to reality TV when that happened because there was no writers. Because the writers were all handcuffed. So, yeah, I think, the point of this whole rant that you started me on is that the world is not in stasis. And that, people who have a 1990s mindset about things are going to be left behind. And people who are aware of how things are changing are able to move faster and are able to be more fluid. And we are not in a world of 2008. We are not in a world of 2012. We're not even in a world of 2016. We're not even in a world of 2020. Right? The world is changing, and those who can recognize that will be able to make the right moves.
One more question, Tyler. With that, what do you recommend we do as screenwriters and storytellers in general to kind of adapt with today's climate and the world that is not, is very different from a world we saw a couple years ago?
Yeah. So here's how I like to think, and like entrepreneur kind of people talk about like first principles thinking, right? And you might have heard this before, where you're essentially, when you are thinking from first principles, you are trying to to rather than examining the system that people have created that already exists, you try to take the basic elements of something and say, okay, let me use those basic elements to try and figure out what to do. So I would say that first and foremost, right now we are in a state of the world where long form, where it's a very strange time to be a screenwriter, because it's like, oh, expensive, long form content. It's like it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. It's like, oh, everyone's attention span is low. It cost $5 million to make a movie. All of this stuff. However, first off, stories are an innate part of human life, right? We've been telling stories ever since we were sitting around campfires, right? Secondly, audio-visual storytelling is not going away and will continue, right? So the medium of telling a story to people through putting something in their eyes and in their ears is also not going away. And I also believe that long-form storytelling is not going away either, but you have to be better at it, because someone is not going to tolerate your garbage long-form story. It's actually funny to see the industry make 3-hour movies. Like Oppenheimer's over 3 hours. It's like, are you kidding me? That's insane. So, and also, Hollywood's biggest advantage is money, right? The biggest advantage that they have is that, obviously they have talent as well, people, but the biggest advantage that Hollywood has is that they can actually put $200 million behind a slate of films and make 20 movies, at various budgets, right? But, and so beating them at the money game is essentially impossible. One thing, but I very much believe that the most important thing in life is people. And what you can do is find other highly skilled people that have a shared vision with you to make what it is you want to make. So essentially, here's what I would say is like, and this is something that people who actively work in the industry that I am very, very close with, screenwriters and people that are actually getting projects over the line, sold and or made in Hollywood. Like, it still comes down to where are they? What is their particular network of people? What are they able to provide to that network of people? And how are they able to bring whatever their particular group of people is together and their leverage points together to get a particular project made, right? So for example, let's say that you are working at some major studio, like you're working at Lionsgate, right? And you've got a couple like maybe you're sort of like mid-level, you're not an executive, blah, 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 but you're really interested in screenwriting and you're in the right place to get a Hollywood movie made. Well, then it's like, okay, well, then it's going to come down to how would you actually package a film that would actually look appealing to get the cash that you would need. Let's say you try to do something low budget in Hollywood standards, so like $1 million. How would you get $1 million from Lionsgate or from your bosses to get this movie made? Well, you can't, sometimes you can just have a killer screenplay, but a lot of times you need more. So you need, a director that you have a relationship with, that now you have this director who finally reads your script and they love it. And now they get on board with the vision of making this movie. And great, now you have a pro director that you can sort of bring into this package. And now you can take this director and you to your Lionsgate buddies or your Lionsgate, bosses and say, okay, hey, it's not just a screenplay. Hey, I've got a guy who's serious about this. Or, again, this is sort of industry stuff, or like, or you take it, you're working at Lionsgate, you take it somewhere else and you say, hey, I'm going to shop this around, and then you get some interest from some other company and you use that to then come back to your boss and say, hey, they are interested in this. Are you guys actually going to take a look at it now? Right. So now you're playing this industry politics game. If you are totally and completely outside of the industry, then money is going to be a problem, just period. There's no way around it, right? You have to figure out okay, what is the scope of a movie that I can make on a or really it's just like, where are you getting money from? And then it's the same sort of thing, right? The internet is now available for you to be able to contact cinematographers that you're interested in, or to be able to contact talent that you're interested in, or reach out to some, TikToker with 8 million followers on TikTok that maybe could be the star of your movie, that now you can take this TikToker and your fantastic script, because all of what I'm saying is presupposing the idea that you have actually learned the skill set of good writing. And now you take this great script and this TikToker that you've got on board with the vision of your movie to some financier. And maybe that's a Hollywood financier, or maybe it's something else. Maybe you get creative and you say, okay, well, this movie takes place in Texas. And so is there some sort of, Texan, some sort of Texan millionaire that I can actually get behind putting some money into this project, or a group of them, or a company that might do that, right? I think what the internet allows us to do is to think from a first principle standpoint, to say, okay, I need the skill to be a good writer. I have to get money from somewhere. That can be Hollywood, or it can also be other places. And I have to get people together and on board with the vision of the movie that I want to make, to actually bring this forward. And so people are going to be huge. Money is going to be huge, but money just is a person, right? You're getting money from a human being, or, from a business, or from some sort of, GoFundMe if you want to go that direction. But then that's a ton of people right now. That's an audience. And so, or you get funding from your 8 million follower TikToker person that, has an audience, and now we're funding it with them, and blah, blah, blah. Right. So, and I'm not saying any of the paths I just outlined are easy or simple. All of them are difficult and take a lot of work. But it's always been difficult. It's always been difficult to make a movie. It's never been simple. But if you really want to make one, I think that now you have more of an opportunity to do so over the next 5 years, especially, than ever before, in unique and strange ways that we haven't seen done before.
Thank you, Tyler.
For sure.
All right, I think I'll pass it to someone else now.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Bye.
All right. Well, let's see here. Okay, so I see Tyler Mowry's a beast is requesting. Josh, you also said somebody had a question in here, right?
Yeah, I just posted it again.
Okay, so this question is, I have a problem with asking feedback about pre-production. My story is a multi-layered plot with 3 climaxes. I don't want filler content in it, nor side characters, since the actual main character is up to the reader's interpretation. And the main character in the story is only the plot driver. Arcane would be a fair example, I guess. The problem is you can't just finish for the comparison to me. Complex Ace. Here's what I would say, dude. I think you are being way too complicated with your story. What you're describing to me here is a very, very complicated story that is just going to give you tons and tons and tons of problems the entire time you're writing it. I would honestly highly recommend that you find a simpler idea, because just being honest, I your multi-layered plot with 3 climaxes where your main character isn't the protagonist. I would genuinely scrap the idea, and I would focus on a story where your main character is the protagonist. That's the kind of stories you enjoy. I think you are overcomplicating the stories you enjoy. I don't think that they are actually as complicated as you think they are. I think you're reading into them super heavy, and they're not actually as complicated as you think they are. Okay, I have to take this this request from Tyler Mowery the Beast. I feel like, and then we're probably gonna shut it down there. I've been up for I don't know how long at this point.
Hey Tyler.
What's going on?
What's up, dude? I'm a big fan.
Nice to meet you, man. Are you able to turn your camera on?
I'm actually getting ready for bed, so
okay.
Not, but I just had two questions for you.
Sure.
So I've been using your practical screenwriting course on YouTube, the free one.
Yeah.
And you say that you want to put structure, secondary to the conflict, the theme of your story. And but the structure that you sort of dove into was simpler. And if you wanted to follow something I guess instead of Dan Harmon's story structure, if you wanted to follow something more complicated, the Monomyth of Joseph Campbell, could you do that?
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. Now, what I would say is the story circle is a distilled monomyth. So the story circle actually came from the monomyth. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you wanted to I guess get more complicated, could you do that?
You could. Yeah, I mean if you wanted to follow the beats of the monomyth very specifically, you definitely can. Yeah. But
cool. How would you I guess do that in practice? Including those conflicts you talked about, how would you weave that in?
So if you were gonna, so just to give everybody a sense of what the monomyth is, this guy named Joseph Campbell studied a ton of archetypal stories across different cultures, and he kind of came up with this idea that all of these stories have this one fundamental hero's journey that he called the monomyth. And there's I can't remember how many points there is in the monomyth, but then Harmon came along and essentially distilled that into its fundamental essence of what makes a story move, and then that is the story circle. So you're still going to have, so your question, can you, your question is, if you're using a monomyth, can it still have a philosophical conflict, or am I wrong?
Yeah, exactly. The 12 stage monomyth. How could you, because I guess the 8 stages is different.
Mm-hmm. So in you're still going to have a philosophical conflict because, here's how it's going to work, right? Scenes, when you have a scene in a movie or a book or whatever, you have a moment of drama. That moment of drama is going to be about a choice, right? So so dialogue is characters arguing about a choice. Action is characters physically acting on a choice, right? And kill someone or not kill someone, right? It's still choice. One character wants to kill, the other one doesn't want to be killed, or something like that. Or we have a dialogue, which is an argument through our words about a choice. When you have that, you're going to have two sides of the choice, right? So in my recent video, does Olive eat the ice cream or not, right? Do you shoot the guy or not? So when you have those two sides of the choice, you then have a conflict with two sides. And if you make that conflict meaningful, the way you make it meaningful is to attach beliefs to it, and therefore you have a philosophical conflict. So if you're going to take the monomyth, you are walking through a 12-step structure with your characters making choices about their arc. And it's going to essentially work like a story circle, because the monomyth and the story circle are essentially the same thing, where your character is going to have their pivotal Like their moment of major change, or where they're starting to realize the truth, is going to be right at the bottom of that Monomyth circle, right? Right at the 5-6, right? Where they get to the furthest out in the adventure they are, and then they start to return, right? That furthest out in the adventure they go is a realization of the truth, and then it's a fight to get back, a fight to get home.
Cool, awesome. I guess, could you maybe provide an example? Like, I'm talking more about some of the abstract stuff in there, like meeting with the goddess. Like, I don't really know, like stages like that where I don't know if it directly correlates.
Have you read A Hero with a Thousand Faces?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Hero with a Thousand Faces, what does he say about meeting with the goddess?
It's like more of like the I'm forgetting exactly. It like woman as temptress, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with like him getting what he wants, and then sort of the temptation of that. Maybe.
Let me pull up the Monomyth here.
Yeah, I'll have to remind myself.
Well, that's where I would start, because if you want to do a Monomyth story. So let's see here.
It says like, okay, this is where the hero gains items given to him that will help him in the adventure.
Right. So this is a 5, right? So this is Dan Harmon's 5, where the character is getting what they want on some level, right? So they're out there in the wilderness, and they are getting. So I would attach that to, and this is again like where I really like the Harmon story circle, is attaching this to the initial desire that is forcing that character to leave. Part of the meeting with the goddess is going to be that. Also, if you can, I would research George Lucas and him writing Star Wars, because he was following Campbell's Monomyth when he was writing Star Wars as well. So you might, there may be some interviews about that. That may be interesting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The other question, we could probably make this more brief. But like, if you like screwed up on doing like your external plot first, you sort of like have all of your ideas there. Like for external plot, it's sort of like world building beforehand instead of like based on the story. Like based on the theme, you world build before and then try to connect a theme to it. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for that?
So I would say, if you have are you saying that you just have a big story world and now you're trying to create a meaningful character journey in it, or that you want your entire story world to be an expression of your theme?
That the first one, like you created a story world and now.
So then I would start with what you want that character's arc to be. What do you want that character to learn over the course of the story? And the best way to understand and set up a character's arc is to ask, what lie does the character believe in the beginning of the story? So in The Dark Knight, Batman's fundamental lie is that criminals are not complicated. They do not hold philosophical worldviews. They are people who want things and do illegal things to get it, right? He literally says this in the story, right? Criminals are not complicated, Alfred. We just need to understand what he's after. That view that he holds, that criminals are not complicated, is the reason Rachel dies in the movie. Because Batman believes that Joker is just a freak criminal, that he is not a person with a worldview, or a person with a message that he is presenting to the world. And Joker proves him wrong, and he proves him wrong very intensely. And because of that, Rachel ends up dying at the midpoint. So if you can understand what your hero's lie is that they believe, what lie are they holding on to? Stories are about people having a lie, shedding that lie, and then realizing the truth. That's what a character arc is. So think about what lie does that character believe. And a great way to find a meaningful lie that that character believes is to ask yourself, what lies have you believed in the past that hurt you? And how did you go through a process of shedding that lie and coming out the other side a different person?
Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Tyler. I really love what you're doing here.
Thanks,
I appreciate the help. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
All right. Well, I see we got a couple more hands raised, but I am going to have to wind it down there. This has been a ton of fun, everybody. It's been super fun coming back on the stream and having you guys ask questions live. I feel like, to me, this was way more fun to like actually talk to people rather than just me reading, text scrolling across the screen the whole time. I'm going to do more of these. I plan on doing another one next Thursday. So if you've got a question that's burning in your soul, I will be back. And yeah, we'll just keep going. If you guys have any feedback in the Discord about like how this is run, Levin, right? Can I join Discord? Yes, it should be linked below the stream that you're watching right now. There should be an invite link that you can click and hop in. But yeah, like in the main chat in the Discord, if you guys have feedback on how this went, let me know. Also in the future, this isn't going to be immediate, but I want to do some like some short script readings and giving like immediate feedback on scripts. And also in the future, I want to do some kind of like we might even do like mini competitions in here where I like in the writers' rooms in the Discord, you guys like break off into groups and like write a 5-page short script, and then I read them and give notes and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff that I kind of want to do with this Discord, but we'll see. And I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I definitely did. I thought this was a really good time. I hope you guys did too. And yeah, I will see you all next Thursday. Talk soon.